Hello again. Welcome back for the fourth edition of Mating Matters. I'm your stylist scientist, Professor Peter Jonason. And today, I want to take a slight left turn from talking about what people want in their romantic and their sexual partners to talk about casual sex, actually. And as the 1990s song from Salt and Pepper said, let's talk about sex. Now, I don't mean sex in the context of romantic relationships, committed relationships. I mean sex in the non-committed way, right? Sex that occurs without some informal or formal commitment. And there's lots of versions of this, and I've spent lots of my early career, and of course now too, trying to study this. And partly this is because I found myself more commonly in these relationships than in committed relationships. So there's a joke in research that says, all research is me search. And so there's some truth to it that a lot of what researchers study has some personal appeal to them. It doesn't mean that researchers are not necessarily objective. It means that they bring motivation and maybe some unique insights. So we have lots of terms nowadays for casual sex. It used to be we only had the option of one night stand as a term that scientists studied, but in the last 20 years or so, this is proliferating. This has proliferated partly because of my own research, but others, of course, as well. So now we have a whole list of potential, what I've called hybrid relationships. Hybrid relationships are ones where you have a mix of long-term features and a mix of short-term features. So a one-night stand has no long-term features to it really at all, right? But something like a booty call relationship or a friends with benefits relationship or these what they call now situationships, which we find that, say, millennials and Gen Xers, Gen Y, Gen Z, whatever the youngest people are, people in their 20s, these situationships that people find themselves in, but other things that have been less well studied, but have been around for a long time, swinging or partner swapping, along with this modern kind of movement among young, rich intellectuals, polyamory. And so these all have some combination of a sexual component, but also a loose commitment or a not traditionally defined commitment structure. The truth is, of course, people want to have sex, and with more freedom, as sexual liberation has taken over, as women have gotten more power, for example, both sexes have evidenced a kind of more nuanced approach to casual sex. And so in the negotiations between men and women, which are often not explicit, they're often very implicit, sometimes people find themselves in relationships that are not of the traditional kind. And by traditional, I mean the kind of one-night stand traditional, right? We had casual sex, we went to a nightclub, that was the end of that. Or, within the context of a serious relationship. Now, I don't mean in a religious way, like marriage or anything, but when two people are in a relationship where they say, look, we are exclusive, right, without some exclusive arrangement, right? So friends with benefits or situationships don't, for example, have that exclusivity marker. And that is one of the features that gives people the freedom to play the field, for example. So research that I've done suggests that things like friends with benefits is really a trial, not a trial run, that's a booty call relationship. Friends with benefits tends to be a placeholder, right? Well, until something better comes along. As in, yeah, we could sleep together. You're not really all that I want, but I don't really want to be alone. And so maybe until some other time that someone better comes along, I'm kind of going to use you a little bit, right? And it is associated, of course, no surprise, these kinds of casual sex relationships are often associated with exploitive personality traits like the dark triad. So both men and women want to have sex, and with greater freedom to exercise and to pursue sexual relationships, there's a greater degree of, let's call them proliferation of kinds of relationships that people might engage in. But one of the things we must be clear on, and this kind of uncommitted / casual sex is anything but casual and anything but free. While it might be casual that you don't see the person again or you don't have a committed relationship, they all come with serious risks and even potentially serious costs. And these costs aren't symmetrical in men and women. For example, women are more likely to suffer reputational damage for engaging in sex. While this is kind of diminishing over time, the judgments that might be garnered against women engaging in casual sex, the diminishing judgment is mostly on the side of men. Women continue to, at least among their competitors, denigrate other women. So the idea of the sexual double standard is something that's driven mostly by female competition. Men are kind of okay with the idea of a woman being interested in casual sex because then he gets low investment sexual access, and that's one of the appeals that these uncommitted relationships have. So if a 24-year-old woman goes to a man and says, "Look, I don't want to have a relationship, but I just want to sleep with you," most men are going to jump on the opportunity because it means he doesn't have to pay for dates. It means he doesn't have to listen to you being upset. It means he doesn't have to get his phone blown up all the time when you want to talk. It means when it's time, it's business time, right? And so the men are getting essentially the bare bones of what they want. But this is not to say that that's all that men want. Now, men like to act cool about these things, and there is this coolness ascribed to men engaging in casual sex. But even men who have done so, I'm one of those people, of course, it's hollow. It gets hollow very quickly, and it often is not what is wanted. Sometimes things seem like they are what you want, but it turns out they're not really what you want. And casual sex is even something that is promoted among feminist women as this kind of empowerment. You go, girl, right? It's often at a distance, though. Women who are within our competitive sphere, right? Two women who are in competitive spheres don't necessarily act that way and think that way, because what local women, what your competitor women will do is decrease the price, okay, the price of sex, which will mean that men all around you are expecting relatively limited cost access to sex. But in the abstract, and the women in the distance, you go, girl. You know Samantha from Sex and the City, for example. So there's this kind of empowerment. But of course, men and women are asymmetrical in the costs and benefits that they have evolutionarily accrued from engaging in casual sex. So, and women tend to have more risks that are associated with them. And so, while everyone is, as Western societies evolve, while both sexes are free to choose, this isn't not this video here is not meant to discourage men or women from having casual sex. Right? You are free to make any choice that you want, but you must recognize that these choices have consequences, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Mostly is the consequences of engaging in casual sex, because with freedom comes more responsibility. Now, I could present these consequences in a very clinical way, in a very using boring terms, but I want to give you 3 consequences that I think will stick with you, and not necessarily make you not, but just simply give you pause, right? Give you some insight about, okay, yeah, it seems like casual sex is free, but it turns out it's not. So we're going to talk about 3 classifications of consequence. One I will call ghosts, the other one I will call skeletons, and the other I will call monsters. So let's talk about ghosts first. Obviously, ghosts aren't real, but we are often haunted by, like, from the Charles Dickens novel, right? The ghosts of Christmas past, well, the ghosts of relationship past. And these ghosts haunt us in several ways that are really meaningful for our ability to form relationships in the future. For example, they create comparisons. You're constantly comparing your partners to those prior people. And indeed, if you had more people, you have more people to compare to, and it becomes harder and harder and harder to be committed to any one person, because maybe that one guy in your past didn't have everything, but he had that one thing, and this other guy had this other thing, and then you kind of like, why can't I just find a guy who has all these things? And so you've essentially touched heaven multiple times, right? I don't mean heaven in a religious sense. I mean heaven like what you wanted, the ideal. Like, I really like the way he smelled, or I really like the way she cooked, or whatever it happens to be. And so these more people to compare to creates this kind of idealized past of these other partners. And so that means we're more likely to, for example, miss them, maybe go back with them, maybe resent the partners we have because we've had someone who could do that. And it's just like, why can't you do that too? Right? This other partner of mine did all these amazing things. And so the more times you've been at bat, like in baseball, you are the harder it is to hit the ball in this case, because you are haunted by these people. You're haunted by them, sometimes literally haunted, as in they're still kind of lingering in your space, right? Where they might be a Facebook friend, maybe you still talk to them once in a while, maybe you're even in the same social groups, and you kind of can't get away from them. And so we tend to date people in our social groups, unless we break up our social groups, which people don't do, but you could, I guess, in a divorce, right? I'll take these 5 friends and you take these 5 friends. We tend not to, so we tend to be haunted by this person. So this person is likely to, especially if you are avoidant, they're likely to be appealing to you after you've kind of come down from that deactivation stage. Like, oh, I kind of miss that person. Yeah, we were good together. And so avoidants in particular have lots of ghosts because they'll have pushed people away that they probably shouldn't have pushed away, and then they regret it after they've calmed down a little bit, right? Because they get overwhelmed. So one of the problems for avoidance is that they get overwhelmed with emotional intimacy, right? So there's maybe things are going well with someone who's avoidant, and that's the problem, is when they start going well, that's when the avoidant starts to get afraid, because they start to realize their fears about not being, maybe the person learning that they're not as valuable as that person thinks, so they have a lot of self-esteem problems. But also there's this point of intimacy, when the relationship starts to progress to something more, like I'm going to meet your friends now, or I'm going to meet your family now, or we're going to move in together, or even go on vacation together maybe. These are really threatening experiences to avoidance because of the nature of this pathology, and so they tend to run away. But what happens is after they calm down, they may reinitialize that relationship again, or go back to an ex they've already been with. And so they have this kind of cycle of relationships and this drama of relationships. And it sets up a kind of romanticism about their partners at time. And this is part of that haunted by ghosts. And it's kind of like the ghost of what could have been. You have skeletons in your closet. Skeletons in your closet is a phrase that's just meant to say you have things in your past. Well, that's the situation we find ourselves in relationships. In the case of relationships, though, those skeletons don't always stay in your closet. There's several reasons why they don't stay in your closet, but they can come out because of the power of rumors, for example, or gossip. And gossip is central to relationships. When people learn bad information about other people, they often share it with their friends. And so Frank McAndrew, for example, has done a lot of work on gossip, and it suggests that a lot of gossip and these kinds of rumors are about informing our friends or competitors about relationship stuff, right? About this person's reputation as a player, or this person's reputation as a cheater, even. And so these skeletons, even if you did something far away, now the internet is everywhere. And so if you burned someone back in, let's say, Australia, and now you live in Italy, it could actually haunt you, right? Someone could find out this information. Someone from your past could actually resurface and cause problems in your relationship. I think I even had a girl I was seeing once send a mean message, or send a warning message to a girl that I liked, and she was like trying to undermine my success with this new person because of the damage that I had done, whatever that happened to have been. And so more than ever, your skeletons don't stay in your closet. We would like to think that they're secrets, but these skeletons are basically our mistakes. Now, when we were 18 years old, when you're younger, I'm not 18, right? But when I was 18, when you were younger, do you want to be held accountable for all the stupid stuff that you did when you're older, when you were 18? Probably not. So, for instance, a cheater at 18, is he or she likely to be a cheater at 30, at 40? Well, it really depends on the kinds of patterns of behavior that they've engaged in since then. Because we all make mistakes when we're younger. The problem with the skeletons in the modern world is that those mistakes cannot be just hidden, right? You can't just sweep them under the rug. You can't put them in this is a closet right here. I call this my Harry Potter closet because it's underneath my stairs. So things like cheating behavior, things like just being bad, being violent, being rude, being angry, being whatever, smelly, whatever bad thing somebody wants to say about you, whatever bad thing that you might regret. It could be things about your reputation, about being dishonest, or it could be even as something as simple as bad sex. Like if you happen to be bad in bed, or someone has a bad sexual experience with you, or even like, oh, he has a small penis, right? For example. These things are the skeletons in our closet, and the more we engage in casual sex, the more we are likely to offend people, the more we are likely to hurt people, the more we are likely to be hurt and be offended, and those things too. And we might then, some people might engage in a kind of revenge process. Now, certainly revenge is associated with things like psychopathy and other dark triad features, but nevertheless, you can't escape your skeletons anymore. It will cost you no matter what, because more than ever, forget real life dating. Online dating is even worse. So just to give you a story here, I apparently went on a date many years ago with a woman in Poland, and I was at a bar, and my former student tried to connect me with this woman, and we go and dance, and things seem to be fine, and then this woman's friend comes over, and it's like, oh yeah, I know you, right? We met on Tinder. I don't remember this woman. I don't remember, but it was the end of this encounter with this woman that I was dancing with. Why? Because even if nothing bad had happened, the very fact that I liked enough to want to go out on a date with the friend, that alone can be enough. That alone can be a skeleton that I can be held accountable for. All right, now to monsters. I don't mean monsters like the movie, right, or like the cartoon movie, or monsters like the movie with Charlize Theron. I mean monsters like crazy exes, for example. So if we have relationships from the past, whether they be just purely sexual or even just relationships, but crazy former lovers can linger in this space and cause problems for us, can undermine our current relationship, can do reputational damage to us. We often have people who are floating around us that are pseudo boyfriends and girlfriends, right? So one of the questions I try to ask women when I meet is there anyone who thinks that they're your boyfriend, right? So we have to be careful, because these prior relationships can do things like give us baggage. And what kind of baggage is? So these monsters are basically baggage. Baggage can be like exes, like baby daddies, for example, right? So if you had a child with someone, this can be, the person can serve as a monster that's always there, kind of pulling you down. I have a friend back in Australia who's having problems with this now, is that she dated a guy who had a child, and because she had a child, and there's the mom still around, this woman always felt like she was not second, but even third, because she has to, the guy, the boyfriend, has to deal with the child, number one, so that the child serves as something like baggage, as does the ex, because the ex and him are coordinating child rearing, and child rearing is a more important task for most parents than the formation of new romantic relationships. So this friend of mine, rightly so, is, as far as I know, applying for or filing for divorce. But also, these monsters also linger because, again, we engage in dating a lot from our social group. And so these monsters can often contaminate our social group. And if we're going to draw more partners from our social group, and this person is going to cause drama in our lives, we need to have a clean break. But it's the more people you casually date, the more people you just have sex with, the harder it is to just cut these things. Because often when casual sex relationships break, it's a very different monster, if you will, than when serious romantic relationships break. And so, and you tend to break fewer of the serious romantic relationships. So the quantity of the cost is lower. Now, the quality of the cost might be more, but we all break up with people for many reasons, and there can be positive reasons to break up. But oftentimes, casual sex relationships don't end on the best of terms. Indeed, in our research on booty call relationships, men report that the booty call relationship ended because she wanted more, and women report the booty call relationship ended because he didn't want more. And so it suggests that women are using casual sex relationships like booty calls as a way of leveraging up to serious romantic relationships. This may have to do with the fact that casual sex is kind of rampant on not just college campuses, but any kind of major city now. Indeed, actual committed relationships are on the decline, and this is not just because of the fears of divorce being so common and all this kind of stuff. It's that the price of sex is lower, and so I don't have to pay a bride price. I don't have to get a ring. I don't even have to necessarily commit to you. You might even just move into my house. In Australia, it's not uncommon for people to kind of become roommates and then engage in a sexual relationship. Right? I even know a woman in Warsaw who still lives with her ex because they can't afford. Right, so this is essentially a monster still lingering around in her life, where she's not dating him, but they can't afford to live apart, and so trying to have a new relationship, right, is quite hard now. And so this is not to say that their relationship was casual. I think they were boyfriend and girlfriend, and that's why they moved in together. But it suggests that they may have moved in when the relationship was still a little bit casual, right? There wasn't really a full-on commitment here. Right? There wasn't because moving in is one kind of commitment, but signing a legal document like a wedding certificate is a whole other level of commitment. And so we find ourselves in the place of, I'm suggesting to you that there are three main categories of costs associated with casual sex. I'm suggesting that there are monsters, I'm suggesting there are ghosts, and I'm suggesting that there are skeletons. Because there are asymmetries over evolutionary time in men and women, women are less interested in engaging in casual sex, but we have a generation of women who have been convinced to do so, and they are free to do so. But what we know from study after study is that women report far more dissatisfaction, far more self-esteem problems, far more disappointment after they engage in casual sex. So people are free to do it, there are just consequences to do it. This is not to say that men don't experience these things, because many a man may have found himself having a casual sexual relationship, that he wanted more. He wanted more out of it. It was underwhelming for him, for example. But nevertheless, we take sex very lightly in society now. And so we kind of just throw it around and do it easily. And what that means then is we're more likely to make mistakes. So when things are simple, it's like buying a cheap car. Yes, it's less expensive, but it's more likely to have more problems, more maintenance problems, break down sooner. This is not to say that Bentley is somehow the most amazing car in the world and going to last forever, right? But you have a greater chance of your car being quality if you invest more into it. Now, when we're younger, we often don't think we want that. And so we say, no, I'm busy making my career, I'm busy going to school, okay, fine. But this is then, you're not really dating for serious, you're dating for fun. And if you're dating for fun, fun comes at cost, right? Fun comes at cost of your feelings. Fun comes at cost as with sexually transmitted diseases. Fun comes at cost with social reputation damage. That reputation damage can extend throughout all sorts of aspects of your life, like the workplace. So engaging in overt, even publicized casual sex behavior like on, say, OnlyFans. Yeah, at the time you might think, oh yeah, it's great, I'm making lots of money. But later on, you might struggle then to, for example, find a good relationship when you decide you want one, to find a legitimate job. It's a bit like getting a tattoo used to be, where the judgments of tattoos. And now, of course, tattoos on your arms might be such a big deal, but face tattoos are probably likely to undermine your ability to find jobs, just like having a publicly available reputation of being someone who engages in casual sex. And so I leave you again with the idea simply that you are free to do whatever you want. We just tend to disregard the consequences of our actions when we're younger. And I'm not trying to be old, grumpy professor with a white beard. I did these things. Of course I did these things. It's possible that I may even do them again. But we must all be aware of the high price that we might pay for our current pleasure.